Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. So, continuing on with the modern day book by Reverend Susan MeeLing, me, starting on page 40. And such questions as I have posed above the recommendation to additionally add to such through the penalties of which I am accurate, if I am, in remembrance of each individual lying to the United States of America on an official form for the United States of America's government, if I'm not mistaken, is a minimum of a 10-year penalty in a federally run prison. If such is the case, or similarly, and such is a reality for the criminal intent of lying on an official government document, has been the purposeful attempt to defraud the United States of America's government, then so should the penalties be, plus a fine paid to the United States of America's government, if I'm not mistaken, of $100,000 per offense and $100,000 per victim directly impacted per event of to be paid off in full prior to the ability to volunteer in a prison to work at the prison to reduce their time sentence. If such means they have to work in a specific area to then pay off the debts before being able to volunteer to reduce their time, then such should be so. If those who would like to attempt to reduce such sentences would like an opportunity, then my recommendations of which, as I have discussed with people in person as well as in writings, of regards to donating blood each month for 6 months and donating plasma each month for 6 months, I recommend for assistance to the blood banks as well as for the plasma centers. That of which could also benefit those who do medical research and thus assist in times of disasters as well, though also keeping in mind for the soldiers of the United States of America when they are in battle and the need for such to be more readily available. For such, each pint of blood and or plasma could be recommended to remove 1 3-month amount of time per donation. If the ability to donate an organ of which one has 2 of in reference in regard to a lung or a kidney as examples, such could be recommended for the reduction of prison time by 1.5 years from the prison sentence. However, if looking further and the volunteering to be a part of the medical research for a known medical issue while in the confines of the prison system to assist with such, the reduction of the prison sentence could be reduced in which one could legally reference as a recommendation for twice the amount of time in such of the medical testing. In reference to such in this paragraph, if the fines have not been paid, then the volunteering does not count in the cost of each pint of blood or plasma and or organ, would then be paid to those whom the money is owed before the ability to reduce the sentences thereof. In reference to those who might question my validity of such recommendations, I pose these 2 questions. Why should the people of the United States of America's Armed Forces, various branches and divisions, be subject to such when they are doing what they can to better themselves as well as the country and the world as a whole? Why should the impacts of such research be done to those who are willing to assist to better so much more, be restrictive, and thus they pay the process of such and prices of such, when they are doing much more to assist the Constitutional Bill of Rights and the aspects of them being law-abiding citizens, being another addition to what is already upon their shoulders when they enter the service to the United States of America's Armed Forces of whatever branch and or division thereof. For if civilians who treat such servicemen and women in such cruel and unusual mannerisms should think to use the United States of America's Constitutional Bill of Rights, of which the soldiers are the ones who have paid the most price thus far, how is such not able to be turned to keep those safe who defend so much? For those of the United States of America's Congress, Senate, White House, and Supreme Courts, my question I ask is which is more expensive in the short term and the long term when comparing the 2 between civilians who utilize such in comparison to those who sign the dotted line to serve honorably, other than honorably, dishonorably, either one of the 3, when in the United States of America's Armed Forces, not to encourage other than honorable nor encourage dishonorable conduct, but in the realities thereof being willing to put forth the effort to join the service of the United States of America's Armed Forces, especially if in an honorable manner. 3 or 4. If they were told, meaning government agencies, about when I was scuba diving more frequently and whether or not they believed I had landed where I had in August of 2009 when the scuba diving occurred at the Bermuda Triangle region, of which to visit the area of the USS or USNS Vandenberg, and those individuals did not think about the fact that law enforcement agencies of the United States of America would automatically want to know how I survived, and thus they lied to the FISA and or FOIA courts and or what other courts. And if the people did not think about that fact, of the government of the United States of America would want to know about when I had been medically retired from the Army branch of the United States of America's Armed Forces, as well as when I had gotten involved with scuba diving, as well as when I had landed at the bottom of the ocean in 3 different places when scuba diving, and surfacing in specific from the Bermuda Triangle of the Atlantic Ocean. While I could not be called back on IRR Individual Ready Reserve, that did not mean the government of the United States of America would not check in on me to see what progresses had or had not been made in regards to my Palm Sunday 2000 head injury and the after effects of. Did those people, or cherubim, not think about that reality? Did those people, or cherubim as I call them, not think about the amount of medications I had been prescribed would cause the healthcare professionals and officials of the United States of America to randomly look into what I was doing to ensure, because of the sheer magnitude of the types of medications and the amounts that I had been prescribed, that the government would want to make sure I was not selling the pills, and or that there were not individuals involved, such as cherubim ones, who would steal my medication and thus sell that on the open black market. Of course, I did not sell any of my pills that I had been prescribed, but did those individuals, known as the cherubim ones, not think about how the United States of America would want to know about the amount I had been prescribed, and they had been paid through the United States of America's government to the healthcare officials, as expensive as medications and healthcare are. Also in reference to the people I had dated who told me, you need to go back to the doctor to get more medication because of you doing or being whatever explanation they gave. For example, Cactus Jack, aka Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. said that. Philip Armstead had said that, as did Patrick Kennedy. Oh, and Joey and Meg Estes. The military doctors for the United States of America's government would not pay. Did those cherubim think that the military doctors for the United States of America's government would not pay attention to why I was in their offices? For example, Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., Philip Armstead, and Patrick Kennedy, each who had said I should be rechecked to get more pills because of, whether in reference to my anger levels, because of the stress of what was going on in my life at the time, reference to my children, made sense to me as to why I had so much stress, not forgetting the garbage that I have been dealing with, even including in this apartment. So if you can hear a high pitch on the video, I wonder which apartment that would be. That would either be the apartment beneath me, the apartment over there, or the apartment on the other side. If any of the videos that I have been recording, there is a high pitch being picked up in sound on the recording, then would that mean the stalking aspects had continued? I would guesstimate so. However, I would always do my best to explain as much as I could to each doctor of the overall picture of what I was going through and what was going on at the time, while discussing how I could see certain aspects of my anger due to what I was dealing with, and how it made sense as to why my anger would be heightened, as well as my pain, obviously, for my headaches and migraines, which those doctors listened to, because they knew I was not asking for mental health assessments, even though each doctor's appointment was. They always do mental health assessment. As they could see, I clearly understood the various aspects of. Ironically, when done explaining the different aspects of why I would usually end up asking the opposite of what those males named previously, as well as other males and females I knew at the time, some named, who had suggested I get more medications because according to those people, or cherubim ones, without any medical degrees by the way, those people, cherubim ones, I knew, and the people I had dated, cherubim ones, not all of them, but some of them, thought they knew better than myself of myself, and more importantly, they thought the doctors who have the medical degrees did not know what to ask me in reference to what should be done for my health when they're doctors. Didn't think it took a head injury to figure that out. I could not see how with the aspects of what I was dealing with in reference of the pills being able to assist such, and only would mask the physical pain instead of assisting the actual problems, which were both in the short term and the long term, of which those people, cherubim ones, were not there for my doctor appointments because I refused to invite them into the offices for me and my medical aspects, with the exception of the last male I dated, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., in reference to a couple appointments. But he also did not say that I needed more medication. He actually had ironically made the recommendation for MMJ because he had said that, and that's going to be it. Ironically, in reference to the male Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., who I wound up with my son in Washington State with, he had come outside one day when I was smoking on the back patio at Thousand Oaks Apartments. And he came over and said, "Susan, I have a question for you." And I looked at him and said, "Okay, what?" He said, "Has anybody ever talked with you about your medications?" I said, "Yes, I've had a lot of people discuss my medications. Usually they tell me that I need more." And he said, "Okay, what about as far as that MMJ?" And I said, "Not many people have. Why?" And I don't actually like discussing MMJ. It's a personal thing. I don't like the stereotype. So, he got my attention. He said, Jesse had said, "Has anybody told you that when you take the pill prescriptions, you're a royal fucking cunt?" Now, unlike when speaking with the two-star general of the, "Well, thanks for that, nobody can say something," in that reference, the reason why it caught my attention was because he was born and raised in a small town outside of San Antonio, had not used many swear words when speaking with me, and had also claimed that he was an officer in the Air Force at one point in time. And anybody who knows Air Force officers in specific, they tend to be a little bit more mild-mannered. And so, "Well, what would you like to discuss?" I wasn't pissy. It was just one of those, "What would you like to discuss?" And he said, "Well, when you smoke MMJ, you tend to be calmer." And I said, "I noticed my pain levels weren't as bad." Then again, that high-pitched sound of, bullshit. But never really thought about it. Why? And he said, "Well, maybe you should think about it and evaluate it for yourself." Okay. And I did. And I found that THC does much better for me. I know I'm not the only one. And CBD does not help my temper at all. It does not help my pain at all. It actually makes me quite angry. And it makes my temper levels heighten. It does not calm me down. It makes me think more violently, I admit. much more violently. And terpenes are not as good for me as THC. Kinda helpful, but not nearly as helpful as THC. But it has to be more of a sativa than an indica, as I've learned, probably because of the CBD levels in most indicas, although there are sativas that do have a higher amount of CBD. I learned that any point above a 0.001 in CBD, my temper is exacerbated. And it takes a lot more for me to focus my energy elsewhere to not lose my shit, which is not necessarily a good thing. Whereas THC, I'm much more calm, much more relaxed, and it is not the stereotype of being overly stoned and type of thing, of like the hippies of the past. It's more along the lines of I can think more clearly, and I am able to, I did plan my Medal of Honor art project and, did all that trip planning stuff by myself, with the exception of the time traveling aspect because of that math. Other than that, the THC does help me far better than terpenes and so much better than CBD. CBD is very dangerous for someone like me. CBD tends to make my temper flare, and you could almost equate that to a solar flare and heating up stuff. And it's really not a pretty thing. It's very bad, very, very bad. And I'm ready to go swimming in, blood after a few things. Hypothetically speaking, I could envision stuff like that and have a fantastic time and not care and do it myself if I had to drain it. So I'm going to go back to the book so that way I don't, go too far off that. However, because I could not handle the pain levels in the Oregon area at that VA, as well as the American Lake VA and the Seattle VA in Washington State, I could not help but need to have my now ex-boyfriend, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., take me to my appointments because of the electrical pain. I have this thing, I prefer to drive. And the fact that I could not drive except for randomly, that pretty much lets you know on that. Of every person I've ever known or had a relationship with, there had only been one person I trusted enough to go with me when speaking with medical professionals, inside the offices of which had actually been a deeper level of trust as it had been for my daughter. That would be the male who I was engaged to twice. Though my biological parents had gone to appointments with me and sat in the waiting area, only when the doctors and I came out of the office appointment areas would they speak only with my dad, biological father. Rightfully, they knew not to ask my biological mother a single question beyond, "It's a nice day, right?" And then again, she was also, in trouble at the Air Force later on at Lackland Air Force Base, where she denounced again being my biological mother. As a side note, and though I have apologized before, I will apologize again to the Military and Special Forces Police at Lackland Air Force Base of JBSA, who ended up having to listen to my biological mother whine and cry in 2004 or 2005 when she lost her self-control when I made a simple and small comment of how a female phlebotomist had pretty hair. But because I was dating a female at the time, she started whining and crying. I apologize repeatedly for you having to listen to that. However, at the same time, I grew up with that. While some might not want to remember that crying sound which came out of her face, she also sang songs in the car in second soprano, knowing of my headaches and migraines after she moved to San Antonio, Texas. But I grew up listening to that in the houses in New Jersey and Illinois, as well as in the car and van rides. For those who have heard the Hallelujah Choir sing, she sang songs of every type in second soprano voice, and though I still enjoy the songs by Avril Lavigne, I am sure even she would feel disgusted if she ever heard a rendition of my biological mother singing Skater Boy, just as anyone else would and did. Because, yeah, don't be jealous. And she did that in second soprano. She also did that to Gretchen Wilson's song in the car in second soprano. And to like balance it out, to like not be in so much pain because of the high pitch crap, I played, you know, not that I didn't already like their music, Ludacris and, you know, Yin Yang Twins, and I mean, obviously I like Christina Aguilera. There's no denying that. But yeah, like anything with a lower voice, because that second soprano high pitch sound was piercingly horrible in pain, and I would guesstimate even people who don't deal with headaches or migraines are like, ah, no thanks. So that is going to be for these particular pages of 40 through 44. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe to my channel and go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. There's my name, Susan MeeLing. But the links will also be in the description section. So, have a good one.